Notice of the meeting was provided to the Westfield Leader, advertising January the 5th, 2017. Notification was sent to Star Ledger. Formally posted in the Municipal Bulletin Board, filed in the ordinance office of the Municipal Clerk, informing the public of the time and place, according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231, PL 1975. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. It's nice to have a nice audience this evening. At this time, I'd like to deviate from the regular order of business. It'll be my honor and pleasure to swear in our new chief, Alan Tweedle, Assistant Chief John Scasadona, and Fire Official Len Spina. Chief Tweedle.
That's what we got it. You ready after the on the fire? Tall guy. I, Alan Tweedle,
I, Alan Tweedle,
solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the same
to the same,
and to the government of the established in the United States
to the government of the established in the United States,
and in this state
and in this state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I do firmly solemnly swear
I do firmly solemnly swear
that I will impartially and justly
I will impartially and justly
perform the duties of the office of
the duties in the office of
Fire Chief
Fire Chief,
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. I, John Scalzadona,
I, John Scalzadona,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the
of the
Constitution
United States
of the United
and
States,
the Constitution of the State of New
the
Jersey,
Constitution of the State of New Jersey.
and I will bear true faith
I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
and to the government established
and to the government
in
established
the United States
in the United States
and in the state,
and in the state,
under the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will impartially and justly
I will impartially and justly
perform the duties of the office of
perform the duties of the office of
Assistant Fire Chief
Assistant Fire Chief
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my
so help me
ability.
God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. I did that a long time ago. Mr. Spina. Good evening. Loretta? You ready? We've been ready a long time. I, Len Spina,
I, Len Spina,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly
that
swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
support the Constitution of the United
the
States,
Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
that I will bear true faith
true faith
and allegiance to the same,
to the same,
and to the governments established
to the government established
in the United States
in the United States
in this state,
and this state,
on the authority of the people,
under the authority of the people,
so help me God.
so help me God.
I further solemnly swear
Further solemnly swear
that I will impartially
impartially
and justly perform the duties
and justly perform the duties
of the office of Fire Official
of the office of Fire Official
according to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Everyone, family settled? Bless you. Any more photography before I continue the meeting? Yeah.
It's nicely decorated for you.
I'm not gonna show my Christmas. Stand
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, I don't want to do that. Yep, we're done.
Councilman Rizzo, at the airline.
I'll be cold from now until sometime in the middle of March.
How about April?
April is fine. I'm cold.
Still losing?
Yeah, you muscle lose weight.
Your face.
My stomach.
Yeah, really.
It's something resembling not a six pack but a tall boy.
But you can,
Okay, we'll move on to our regular business. Mr. Anand, do you have something for us this evening?
Yes, Mayor, let's just talk, if we could, about the ordinance. I guess it's the second ordinance that's on for adoption.
17-30.
Which is, yes, 17-30. That ordinance, as you know, was, has a minor amendment, which is contained entirely, I'm trying to pull out the ordinance here. Anyway, the only section that was added was the part that talks about the provision of affordable housing and a 15% set aside. The planning board reviewed the ordinance and made a number of recommendations, none of which actually address that portion of the ordinance. You know, I had this out and it disappeared on me for some reason. But the planning board recommendations, the planning board recommendations were contained in their minutes. One of them had to do with having a proportionate share of any affordable housing that would be needed. If, for example, there were fewer than the number that would call for an affordable unit, that there be some monetary contribution. There was also a comment about the fact that the ordinance as it presently exists has a 20-foot minimum lot width. And there was also a provision that had to do with making sure that all residential, frankly, a non-residential development in the borough pays into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The last of those is already covered. We adopted several months ago a development fee ordinance that provides that. With respect to the 20% minimum lot width and other provisions regarding capture of the number of the number, if it were less than would require an affordable unit, I think are good suggestions. My recommendation would be that the ordinance as it exists, as proposed and as you already passed it, be passed. And then we refer the matter back to the planning board. As I said, I think those are good suggestions to look at. And if the planning board has suggestions, for example, I don't know, I would make the adoptions or the changes myself, but for example, this suggestion was that perhaps 20-foot lot width, which is the existing lot width, is not wide enough. I wouldn't know what lot width to make it, so I said send it back to the planning board, or refer the questions back to the planning board, and we could certainly next year adopt those recommendations if they come back in tangible form. So that would be what my recommendation is on 17-30, is that it be adopted as is, that the planning board be asked either at the same time or separately to review those recommendations it made and make specific ordinance recommendations.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Knopf?
Mr. Knopf, the one that you were just referencing, I believe is 17-29, it's about the central business zone.
I'm sorry, yes, that's the one I meant, 17-29.
And just for point of clarification, 17-30 is the redevelopment plan that encompasses 73 rental units, right?
Yes.
Okay, so on the table, we also have the 52 stack townhome option that a council member could motion off the table if they choose.
Yes, actually, what you've got on that is you have, I know that you all got an email. You have the 52 stack townhome ordinance that was introduced a while ago. You had a public hearing, and that matter was tabled. That could be, someone could move to remove that from the table and take that up. My understanding is, just from the, I guess from the correspondence, not from the correspondence, from the meeting I attended and so forth, was that what the intention was to, rather than do that, to pass the ordinance that we introduced on the 12th, which was the apartment alternative. When that comes up, again, there'll be a public hearing, so we'll have time to discuss that, but that's my understanding, is that that was the recommended course of action. I understand that's what the planning board proposed as well.
That is correct. Being a member of the planning board, they did recommend that we go forward with the ordinance, and if there's any deviations, as you said, the site plan would be discussed about the details. Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Renat? Hearing none. Any? Do you have any?
No, there's nothing.
Okay, thank you. Any unfinished business of the council this evening? Any new business? Hearing none. Comments on matters for discussion for members of the council. Councilwoman Blumenstock.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one.
A resident did bring to the council's attention to remind us, to let the residents know and remind the residents that the Borough Hall is a warming station, so if there's any seniors who, something's wrong with their heat or anything like that, they can come here to Borough Hall to warm up. So I just wanted to put that out there and remind the residents of that. Thank you.
Very good for that announcement. Councilman Kukrow?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is a follow-up to the Hartman Park ordinance. We as council people are legislators, leaders, and make decisions important to the borough. Even though this ordinance has already been passed, there are some serious issues that come upon us that must be addressed once again. One is adding to our bonding total. This, my fellow councilor Joe Sarno brought up as an issue. Another issue is how this playground distress came about. I have visited the playground and it is in very poor shape. The first question that comes up is why is it in such poor shape? Missing benches and missing and rusted swing sets, drinking fountains that haven't worked in years, picnic tables that are splintering. All this puts our children at serious risk these many years. We as councilors have to ask how this came about. Our borough is obligated to maintain our public facilities. Obviously, we failed. There are two councilors on the dais that have been up here for 7 to 9 years. Where were they while the park rotted away? The DPW is supposed to maintain it, were they not? The council did not direct them for some reason, so we have this liability now. I am wondering if this comes down to a failure of a shared service with the DPW agreement. Why weren't we notified the park was not maintained? In fact, we have residents doing landscaping on our public lands where the DPW is supposed to do it. Is our shared service failing and no one is knowing to tell the residents? There are those councilors that decide to just ignore the underlying problem and just want to spend more of our tax dollars without consequence. This is wrong. As a council, we're failing the people in our responsibilities. Before we voted, I asked all council people, why was it not maintained? How can we find out what fell between the cracks? Whoever's on the Buildings and Grounds Committee in 2018 must investigate and generate a report on why Hartman Park maintenance, missing and broken equipment was ignored all these years. The report should be on our desk by mid-year. This is certainly our council responsibility to the public, and it's important so a costly travesty does not happen again. The Buildings and Grounds Committee should review all DPW work orders on Hartman Park to see if something was missed. I heard the school district is sitting on a large amount of surplus money. Some dedicated, some not. Since the school district uses this park, they should share in the cost. In return, they should give input as to what this park should have regarding school play activities. We should try to lessen the cost impact to the taxpayers as much as possible. The school's surplus monies is sitting idle and should be used for shared service situations like this. This would avoid the added burden of bonding and possibly having to forego other upgrades elsewhere. So I would like everybody on this council this evening to let our borough administrator know that I would like the last 6 months, a year, however long it takes, to find out why this park was not maintained, what equipment was replaced and not replaced, and I would like to know it this evening. Also, that's first. Also, I did speak to Kenilworth. They just did a great job on the Mario Park on Michigan Avenue. I spoke to Linda Karlovich. They did that as a organized community build. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. You actually get the community involved in this project like we did with the Little League Field, the First Aid Squad, and the contractor that they used was Pacerno and Giordano. I did speak to them. They said they would be happy to speak to council about what the project entailed, what the town had to pay for, and to get people in the community to step up to the plate. They want this park and donate some of their time. I think that's only fair to the people that live here, and I think it's only fair for the people in Garwood. So like I said, I want everybody on council to agree that we will have all correspondence for the park submitted to the council this year.
I'm not, I don't know where this.
Sure.
where
I mean, there's obviously you addressed a lot of things. So, as far as the maintenance of the park over the last 30 years.
25, right?
30 years since it's been actually rebuilt. It's been 30 years. I think it's unfair to just point the fingers at two council people
Why was
that
this
we're
not,
working with.
I'm not pointing fingers,
Well,
I'm
you
saying,
just-
what,
I just want to point out, you did say 7 and 9 years, which you're pointing out 2 individuals
well,
on the council.
they've been on the council
So,
longer than
I just
anybody
think-
else.
I'm just saying you're pointing fingers at those 2 individuals. I think that's unfair to do, when obviously there is a lot of people who have been on council throughout our time, right? Would you agree that there's more
Absolutely, but
Republicans?
I'm only talking about the people up here
So, what I'm
now.
saying is that I think that your idea of making sure that it stays maintained is absolutely on par. And I have absolutely no problem in making sure that the DPW, who we met with at our Buildings and Grounds Committee, to make sure we have some sort of schedule of maintaining that property so that the equipment that is put into place is properly maintained. I don't necessarily know how much time and resources digging into 30 years of what the DPW did or did not do necessarily helps us going forward in forging a plan for making sure that idea is maintained. I'm not sure that that's necessarily a good use of our time, because the reality is that we're trying to obviously fix this problem by making sure that it does get maintained. Because I think it's going to be hard to find that information out. You know?
I don't think so, because if we're spending the money, that should be all documented expenses. I mean, like I said, I don't want to have an argument with everybody, but there's certain people on council that have been up here longer than any of the rest of us. And I'm sure there's many other people to blame. All I want to know is that this won't happen again, because in 25 years, 10 years, 5 years, we just keep spending the same money over and over, and it's not fair to the people of the town that are taking the money out of their pocket to provide.
I'm not denying that everybody's taxpayer dollars should be held accountable for.
Correct.
Absolutely. All I'll say is that I don't necessarily think, I think it's also important to put in perspective that this was 30 years. Things basically deteriorate over 30 years.
Don't you replace them as
And-
they deteriorate?
Yes, ideally you do replace things, but sometimes when 30 years comes up, it's hard to keep up, I guess, with those replacements that need to happen. And so I imagine over time, there was equipment that never really got replaced over time. Maybe there was budget issues, maybe for whatever reason, no one wanted to obviously replace those things because there was a budget. I don't know the actual issue.
Well, I think
as to
that's a
why
really
that
good
is.
reason why we should find out.
So this is an opportunity, I think we have, to make sure that we put into place a system that we can make sure that there is maintenance that is done well. So I absolutely think you're right in terms of making sure that we do have proper maintenance. I'm also happy if you would send over the information that you found out about Kenilworth. I'll be happy to talk to that individual and see what they have to say, if it's something that is workable. I'm certainly.
Well, they did a
open to
beautiful
the
job
option.
on the park. I just didn't have a chance to print all the photos. They sent me them over, they sent me the rendering, and it was beautifully done. Like I said, the community has always had a stake in what was being done in Garwood. And now they're being taken out of the equation, and then we're just spending the money.
Well, I don't think I think based on last meeting, there was a lot of people who have expressed great interest in this park. I don't think that, that's a misrepresentation. There are a lot of people that have expressed a desire and excitement about this park, so.
How many, a dozen, 2 dozen, 20, 50, 100? I mean, that's what the thing is, all I'm trying to say is that the people deserve, they have the right to know how the money's being spent, why equipment wasn't replaced as it broke. The water fountain hasn't worked in years. Who ever heard of a park without a water fountain? In years.
And I do think you're right in that going forward, I am very happy to take on the, as Streets and Roads Chair, sort of that communication with the DPW as to their schedule of making sure everything is, once the playground is renovated, making sure everything is up to par, that they check drinking fountains, benches, equipment, things like that. I'm completely on board with coming up with some sort of weekly, bi-weekly, however, we determine schedule to make sure that these things don't happen again. But I do agree with Councilman Lazar that going back 30 years, not only is
You don't have to go back 30 years.
well, it just gets very difficult, and then we play the blame game, and then it doesn't really, in the end, that doesn't solve anything. It's kind of a moving forward from here. Let's do our job from here.
Well, I mean, the only thing I have to say about it is that, people are trying to point fingers and say that nothing's been done to the park, and, certain people up here should be, held, responsible for us spending money now. You can nod your head all you want. But certain things become vintage, okay? I'm in a business where things that are 10 years old become vintage, and you just can't get parts for them. And then sometimes you have to replace the whole thing rather than try to locate that part because they're just not made anymore. So I am bringing that up as maybe that's the reason why the water fountain doesn't work. Maybe the water fountain parts aren't available anymore. So maybe that's the reason. Maybe it's been broken for 10 or 15 years. I don't know. But you have to take that into your thought where, hey, you know what? It's been a long time. I'd rather throw this on somebody else. But maybe a park not being renovated for the past 30 years, maybe 30 years when those things were first put in, those parts were available, and now they're not. So now it's come to the point where you can spend all the money you want, to try to fix that one water fountain when it's probably, better advantageous to spend the money and just get a brand new one. Where if it does break again, because it can, okay, because it's outside, it's something that's outside, it holds water, and when it gets cold, pipes will break. So therefore, you just move forward and just spend the money and just get something that's up to date, something that's handicap accessible, something that's better, something that's new, and that's why you spend the money. And if we're getting a grant for $55,000, I'm all for it. So if you want to blame me for the reason why the park is the way that it is, go right ahead. I have no problem with that.
Anybody, there's people that are on council.
No, but you're pointing fingers at two people, and I'm more than happy to take that blame.
Councilman, if I may, I've been on this dais the longest. And the problem overall, I think, is philosophy with the councils as they move forward. Things just go to the wayside and just make every piece of equipment in this borough last 30 years. That's the problem. That's why, as the finance committee put the program together of the improvement plan, that's going to have all this. We're going to be looking at what we need in the next 5 years, what the dollar value is at, and how much we want to go out financially to support that plan. I think that'll all go away. I think everyone, their suggestions of looking at the immediate transition to the new and putting a maintenance program together is a great plan that we should go forward from there. You have anything else?
Let's have these debates months prior to actually voting on it. No matter if you're in favor of it or not. If you feel that strongly, bring this, it makes your case stronger. That's all.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, Councilman, I couldn't agree with you more because I think something that we can constantly battle as we have so many different items on our plate at any given point in time on this council. While it's a small town, there's a lot of things going on, hence why we're meeting on December 26th. But the point is, when we're talking about, we try to do the most we can with the least amount to be mindful of our taxpayer dollars. Something like having the borough administrator spend countless hours on a study to just find out and produce a report on why this happened doesn't really help us moving forward. I agree with the idea of a maintenance plan in place, and that's something productive moving forward. A witch hunt, pointing fingers, not productive. Another thing that would be productive is, as you said, Councilman Sarno, is having these discussions much earlier. The plans for Hartman Park were distributed in April. I would have liked to know about Kenilworth in Endeavor. Councilwoman Cooper brought that up.
We weren't like crazy in favor of it.
I
That's what I
wasn't
mean.
finished, but that's okay. That's okay. I just think, again, we hear things at the 11th hour or after it, the 12th hour.
After you're about to
and
spend the money. That's not my point.
We should have these
We're gonna end this
discussions
conversation in
earlier.
a minute, so
I
let's
hope
just
we can
sum
be
it up
more
here.
proactive in 2018.
Okay.
And I just found out about Kenilworth because I've been looking into other towns and what they've done. I went over and looked at the park, it's beautiful. Like I said, the community had its say in what was going on. I think you should bring that back to the people of Harvard.
I think at this point we've massaged the topic enough. So we got anything else, Councilwoman?
No, I do not.
Thank you. Councilman Lazaro?
Nothing for me, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Petrozelli?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Councilman Sarno?
The only question I have is, are we accepting any prepayments for the 2018 tax year as a borough? We are.
First and second quarter.
First and second quarter, so we could say that, right? We have what, how many more days?
Just
If you
one and
have-
a half, maybe 2 days.
You literally have 2 or 3 days if you want to prepay up to 2 quarters for 2018, okay, because of the different tax laws that are coming into play. You have your opportunity to do so. I want to say, there you go, you have until Friday, okay, to go out and prepay to your 2018 taxes.
Well,
I
you
think
can
it's
and
important.
don't forget, we can charge them also.
What's that?
You can charge them.
Credit
You
card.
can pay electronically, that is also
That's
true.
correct.
And always consult your personal CPA and advisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Tedesco.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 items tonight. I would like to ask you to dedicate tonight's moment of silence to a dear friend of mine, Jim Boyle, who passed away about a week ago. He's a longtime fireman in our town. He was involved in our Centennial Committee, which put together the fantastic Centennial celebration, I guess, how many years ago now? 14 years ago. Member of the Lions Club with me, known as Fireman. That was his Lions nickname, and also a Knights of Columbus member. And so I just would like to ask that our moment of silence is dedicated for him. And I want to thank him for all his service to our town, and my heart does go out to his family and friends. The second item I have is about the paperboard site, just a short informal report. I figured you would want one from your joint planning and council committee.
Yes, thank you.
So we as a joint committee met on December 21st with representatives of the site known as the Paperboard, which was the second meeting we've had with them. From the planning board, Steve Greet, Kathy Bellagio, and Craig McCarrick were in attendance. I was there along with Councilwoman Blumenstock. Councilman Sarno could not attend. Additionally, Borough Planner Victor Venegra and redevelopment attorney Bill Northgrave were also present. We learned that the developer has officially closed on the property and continued to have preliminary discussions about what both of us would like to see at the site. It is very clear that we need to retain the services of a planner to help us as we move through the negotiation process. At this point, the council has worked with 2 different planning firms in an effort to see the council make a more unified decision than we did last time about this issue. I would like to offer my support for Harbor Consultants and planner Mike Minstretta. If the council can come to an agreement tonight, we can put forth a resolution for these professional services to help us move forward. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any thoughts on your recommendation?
Yes.
I would not second that at all.
I would agree to go with Harbor Consultants.
I would as well.
Oh, yes again.
Okay, thank you.
I'm fine.
You're,
I'm fine with that.
So is the mayor, thank you.
So
Councilwoman?
perhaps we can do a resolution deleted from the consent agenda later on this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council, please step up to the microphone, say your full name and address. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I must admit, at the last meeting, everybody was perfect for 3 minutes. Mrs. Luker?
We've known each other for many long time. First of all, the first thing I want to do is really thank the council because, I mean, I've been there before. It's not easy. Back then, we got paid. Not a lot, but, so I do thank you for your service. I think that the people line up in this town, I know only have 3 minutes to get to where I'm going right now, but that people want to come to this town because somehow it turns out to be beautiful. At the end of the day, it's a very nice town. I'm not moving anywhere. I enjoy it. I hope Lou Petrozelli's not moving here. Let me tell you about Lou. About a while back, I said to Lou, when you have a minute, can you do some electrical work for me? That was 9 years ago. So hopefully you can come tomorrow and do some electrical work. As you know, it's his last meeting. And I kept telling you, when's your last meeting? When's your last meeting? And I just found out that we're having a meeting tomorrow. Is that what they're doing?
It's at your house, Mrs. Luker.
Yes, thank you. So I brought him a nominal gift because he can't afford Bob and Eddie's attorney when I give him that. So anyway, it's just 1 bottle of beer. Hopefully, it's cold right now, so you could actually go. And I would have brought 6, but we're 5 blocks from my house, so I would have drank 5. So Lou, in all sincerity, I worked with you up here. You've been my friend. You've been my neighbor in the backyard. Any given time I call Lou Petrozelli, he comes.
Yes.
And anything that we've done together, and being the non-tradesman, if you would, like I would ask Lou a question, and he really should say, "How stupid are you?" But, instead he would really give me the full answer. And Lou, I really appreciate it, and the town really appreciates it, and they're really going to miss you. And I wish, the law's allowed me to give you more than a bottle of beer. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No. You can't even have it.
You can't even open it.
Hi.
Good evening.
So, I'm a resident of Garwood. My name's Justin O'Hay. I wanted to kind of address one thing that I found to be a little bit troubling. Some of the mudslinging I've seen on a local level here, I think is really problematic. Never have I witnessed local politics getting to such a level that it has, getting mailers with all types of slanderous comments in them. That honestly, I'm not on the mailing list, so I don't know how I wound up getting it. I think they were just dropped in everybody's box. Also, using comments like like comparing the borough to communism is totally unprofessional, and I'm speaking to you, Mr. Sarno. I never said that.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
So,
I'm his older
but
brother, I saw it.
I really think, like, this is my first council meeting that I'm attending, and seeing the level of just like seething kind of anger going on here is really unhealthy. It's a small town. If you guys will actually want to make things work, try cooperating. That's all I have to say, and I'm just gonna leave it there.
Thank you.
Social media is public.
No, what site are you talking about? 'Cause there's some
sites I don't have
access to.
Hi, I'm his older brother, Jonathan O'Hay, 519 3rd Avenue. Hello, everybody. You just lied in front of a room of people.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Okay.
You attacked me on Christmas Eve on a Facebook thread I had nothing to do with, and then erased it later on.
What are you talking about?
You called me a young man.
From what site? What are you talking
Come
about?
on, man.
No, I don't
Your
know.
Facebook page.
Facebook Garwood Republican Party.
That's not my page. I don't have access
It's
to
not
it.
his page.
There's
That's
a
not my
couple different
page.
pages, sir.
To be honest with you, I don't,
Who was it then?
I don't know. I don't have access to the Garwood Republican Party page. I really don't. I don't. You can go ahead
Why
and
did
look
they
it up.
attack my brother thinking it was me then?
Well, I'm
Ask
telling you
them.
right now, I don't have access to it. That's someone else, those are other actors. I don't have access to it. I can show you what I have access to. I don't
That's
have
the
access to
original
that
Garwood
page.
Republican page.
One at a time, please.
All right, on another point, back to the Hartman Park thing, I'm just
Okay.
flabbergasted that you would complain at this meeting about a drinking fountain being broken for 30 years,
I didn't say 30 years.
5 years, 1 year.
The
Yet
teacher
you,
told me it's been broken for years.
okay, but you voted against fixing it.
I voted against redoing it for $160,000. Yes, I did.
It costs money to fix that.
Not $160,000, sir.
What does it cost?
I think there'll be other estimates, and I think you can come out a little bit cheaper.
That'd be great, but voting against everything, no, no, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
vote
there's
against,
no
no
progress
against
in this
everything.
town.
I voted for roads, I voted for the truck last year. I don't vote no against everything. Believe me.
But, you know, the development, we'd have an empty, blighted Superfund site and a parking lot. This doesn't go through.
And what doesn't go through?
The development, Russo.
This
that what you?
is a different subject.
Okay, but.
I was
but you-
totally against the size of that development, and I've been against it for 5 years. I was on the planning board before council. I tried to bring these things up then, they didn't listen to it. If you think Garwood can accommodate almost 400 units and an increase in our population by 25% or more with just the one project, good for you. That's not the way I thought Garwood was. That is an extreme amount of rental units, I'm sorry, I don't agree with it, I've been here for 50 years. If they would have scaled it down to something manageable, maybe I would have gone for it. But almost 400 units is not Garwood.
It's gonna happen. I'm
Well, it's
sorry.
happening because they passed it, and it started at the planning board level. I'm sorry that you don't agree with what I have to say on it, but it comes from my heart, and that's what I really believe. Our town cannot accommodate where we'll be above 50% rentals to home ownership. We cannot.
It's a unique situation the town's in, but Russo purchased the property.
Russo had one project that closed title, that was Petroplastics. The rest of them did not close title until the last year or so. The other one was closed title years ago. He closed title on that, waiting for the rest of the, waiting for them to decide what was gonna happen. He certainly wasn't gonna close on the two-family, on the bank, at Casale and Petro, which owns the parking lots. So, you know, I'm sorry that you don't agree with me, but I stand by what I said.
It's gonna go through.
Well,
I'm
thank
happy
you.
about it, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, members of council, Bruce Patterson, 325 Willow Avenue, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Hartman Park, the ordinance on Hartman Park, just a follow-up statement, and maybe, there's some bickering back and forth, but I find it silly that individuals wanted to indict the only grown-up on council who wanted the borough to address all the issues coming from Hartman Park. A month ago, I visited the park. I found rotten, broken equipment. Rotten is your word, by the way, Mr. Lazo. So bad it exposed our children to major hazards for at least the last 6 years. It was obviously a failure of communication that led to inaction on the upkeep and maintenance of this park. Nobody saw this. On this travesty, we must hold accountable not just the 2 councilors, but the council for the last 6 years. These are the names. I'm going to read off the council names since 2011. Petrozelli, Matthew, DeFilippo, Sluka, welcome. Show up and you get blamed.
Please, please.
Lincoln, Hack, Tedisco, Earsted, Palmer, Tarantino, depending on what year it was. Martin, Carney, Blaufetter, Sarno, and Kukro. I'm also going to include Mayors Quattrocchi and Lombardo and DPW Directors Fred Corbett and Clint Dixon that nobody saw what was going on. I'm not going to include Councilor Bloomstock and Councilor Lazaro, since they're just sitting this year, and I appreciate Councilor Lazaro for at least working towards a workable solution in the near future. So, but if you notice that these names, I mean, they're both Democrat and Republican, so I guess you can call it a bipartisan fiasco. But moving forward, Hartman Park can't be repaired as it is. It's just too far gone. Thanks to the past 6 years of I guess, neglect. And the ADA is a requirement these days, so therefore it has to meet the standards. So whatever's coming about, should be included in the new standards. And the nice part does enhance the community. So I just ask the council, please work towards a good design and a reasonable cost to the taxpayers. So I mean, we're not just blaming you two. I mean, I don't know what it is about 10, 11 days. So there's a whole slew. So welcome back.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. What a fun place. Anyone else?
Andy Blumenstock, 315 Spruce. I just wanted to say, I'm excited about having the new park, and I agree that we really need to make sure that we maintain it. When it's shiny and new, we can do our best to keep it shiny and new. But I also think the council needs to be prepared to spend money when things need to be fixed, even if it's not the most opportune time, even if there's other things on the agenda. A drinking fountain, I just Googled it, could cost anywhere, an outdoor one, between $1,500 and $4,000. That's not a small sum of money. But if that were to come to our attention, to Councilman Petrozelli's point, it was not fixable, it was grandfathered, we needed to replace it. The council needs to be prepared to maintain that. Even if it's inopportune, even if we really don't want to spend that money. So I just put that forth. Lastly, I just want to thank Lou Petrozelli for all of his service. As long as I've lived in Garwood, Lou has been on council, and I've always loved having him up here, so thank you for your service.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Andrew Recheck, 524 4th Ave. I just want to agree that, we are investing in this park, and I do hope that going forward we do upkeep it. Hartman Park needs to be renovated. There's no fixing it. This is coming from someone who owns a car for 15 years. I know you have a car for 17 years. But if anything went wrong with my car today, I'd have to replace it, and it's not a repair job. It's just, things go beyond their extended use, and we need to replace it. But I agree 100% that going forward, I hope we do maintain it, and we do, hold it responsible. I don't see this as a costly travesty though. I see this as a tremendous opportunity for us to get some of our taxpayer money that's going into the county and reinvest it in our children. Whether it's a dozen people who come up here or 2 dozen, I think all of our residents' voices are important, and I don't think any of us, it's not easy getting up here and talking. My hand's shaking a little. It's not fair to write off my voice just because I'm one of a few people. I just don't think that's fair to the people who come up here and voice their opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? Do I have a motion to adjourn this portion of the meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Should we continue on, Council? Okay. All rise for a moment of silence for Jim Boyle and a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Notice of this meeting was provided to the Westfield Leader, advertised January 5th, 2017. Notification was sent to the Star Ledger and promptly posted on the Municipal Public Bulletin Board and filed in the office of the Municipal Clerk, informing the public of the time and place, according to the provisions of the Open Public Meeting Law, Chapter 231 PL 1975. Roll call.
Mayor Lombardo.
Here.
Councilwoman Blumenstock.
Here.
Councilwoman Kukrow.
Here.
Councilman Lazaro.
Here.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Here.
Councilman Sorna.
Here.
Council President Tedisco.
Here.
Minutes, please.
Regular workshop and executive minutes of the mayor and council held on December 12, 2017.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Communications, please.
New Jersey State League of Municipalities Mayor's Advisory.
Receive and file.
Union County Board of Treasurer Freeholders, Ordinance 789, 2017.
Receive, I'm sorry.
Ordinance 790, 2017, and Ordinance 791, 2017.
Receive and file.
Rahway Valley Sewage Authority, minutes of the meetings held on November 2nd, 2017, and November 9th, 2017.
Receive and file. We move on to ordinance. Public hearing on ordinance 17-28, 17-29, and 1730, as advertised in the Westfield Leader. Catherine, please read ordinance 17-28 by title only.
An ordinance fixing salaries and wages for certain officials and employees of the Borough of Garwood in the County of Union, State of New Jersey.
Have you received any correspondence on 17-28?
None, Mayor.
Okay. Does anyone present wish to be heard on ordinance 17-28? Mr. Patterson?
Simple question. Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Bruce Patterson, 325 Willow Avenue. I noticed there's two openings listed in here. I'm just wondering, these dollar amounts, are they going to be impacting pension credits at all, increasing the pensions of anybody? Not these stipends or?
It depends on who gets them, I guess, is the answer.
I think later on, there may be, on a consent agenda, but they
Yeah. The property maintenance individual.
We can leave it at that, but I mean, if somebody who's already in the pension program.
Somebody who's in the pension system is the person who's appointed, then this is going to affect the total amount of the compensation. I think, actually, that's not really my field of expertise, but I think that even under the revisions that took place, 7 or 8 years ago now, I still think that if somebody has a salary and receives an increase, that would obviously affect the total amount of what their compensation is and what determines what the pension is eventually. If it's somebody who has a part-time job who isn't in the pension system, then probably not. But again, as I said, started off with, it depends on who gets it.
A little roundabout, but that's an answer.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anyone else? Do I have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 17-28?
Second.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-28?
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please, Kathleen.
Councilman Blumenstock.
Aye.
Councilwoman Kukrow.
Yes.
Councilman Lazzaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
Aye.
Council President Sedisco.
Aye.
Kathleen, please read 17-29 by title only.
An ordinance to amend 106-94 Central Business District in Article 13 Zone Regulations in Chapter 106 Land Use of the Code of the Borough of Garwood to provide for an affordable housing set aside in the Central Business District.
Have you received any correspondence on 17-29?
None, Mayor.
Does anyone present wish to be heard on ordinance 17-29?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays. I'm here, I appreciate what Mr. Renat said earlier about 17-29, and I appreciate what Councilman Tedisco said in terms of advising the council about the planning board's comments, but I want to go a little further to really explain not only to the council, but to the public, the concerns about that ordinance and what my professional thoughts are, and the planning board itself. The bottom line is that the ordinance provides for affordable housing downtown, but when you have a strict reading of it, it talks about the affordable housing being required when you hit 7 units. What the planning board realized was a couple things, and that is that if someone proposes 4, 5, 6 units, there is then no provision for affordable housing. And as Mr. Renat mentioned earlier, I hope very much, very strongly, that the council takes this suggestion, because I do understand that you have to adopt the ordinance, but you kick it back to the planning board, so we can actually look at what type of monetary donation should be made. And that's for a couple of reasons. First is, while the planning board recognized the percentage concern, Victor, the board planner, recognized the concern about the 20-foot wide lots. Now, every once in a while, I do claim ownership for writing the ordinance. Okay, now I wrote the ordinance about 85 or so. And okay, why is it 20 feet? Well, it's 20 feet because that's what the majority of the lots are downtown, not all of them, the majority. And if you look at the liquor store or the hair salon or the barber shop, if you look at, they are 20-foot wide lots. And having a 20-foot by 100-foot lot, therefore a 2,000 square foot lot minimum, which is the minimum that's required in the zone, would allow anyone to build 3 stories, build 4 units up there, not provide an affordable housing unit, and not provide any monetary donation to the borough, as Bob mentioned, in the fund, which would help provide for affordable housing later. It's very important that we do allow and provide for affordable housing downtown, because hopefully, in the future, we will be designated a transit village. And if we are, those affordable housing units are something that's required. It allows us to actually put forth requests for grants. So those items that the planning board recognized, we do understand, I do understand, I do not speak for the board, I do understand the council has to adopt something tonight, but I do encourage you to take up Mr. Renat's recommendation and send it back to the planning board. The ordinance does need amendments, and I think if we make those amendments early next year, we can provide for affordable housing downtown as that ordinance's purpose is, but it's just not written as it should be.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Okay. Do I have a motion to close public hearing on ordinance 17-29?
So moved.
Second?
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-29?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
At what point can we send it back to the planning board?
After the,
Well, we're not really going to send that ordinance back. In other words, what we'll do is we can do a resolution probably better if I actually prepare one. So why don't I prepare a resolution to be introduced, let's say at the first meeting of the year, to refer the issue back to the planning board.
That'll be on the 9th, is there not?
Excuse me?
It's the 9th? That's the first meeting of the month?
Yes.
Okay.
In the meantime, everybody will have heard this, and if the planning board wants to start talking about it, well, they don't have a meeting between now and the 9th.
The 14th is the next meeting.
Okay, so the 9th will be plenty of
Okay,
time.
thank you. Any further discussion?
Yeah, 14th's the weekend.
Okay. I stand corrected. Roll call, please, Kathleen.
Councilwoman Blumenstock?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kukrow?
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro?
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli?
Aye.
Councilman Sarno?
Aye.
Council President Tedesco?
Aye.
Kathleen, please read ordinance 17-30 by title only.
Ordinance of the Borough Council of the Borough of Garwood, County of Union, New Jersey, adopting the South Avenue 2 redevelopment plan pursuant to the local redevelopment and housing law, NJSA 48-12A-1.
Received any correspondence on 17-30?
None, Mayor.
Okay, does anyone in the audience like to be heard on concerning ordinance 17-30?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, Bill Nurse, 323 Avenue. Again, okay, these are my comments, okay? I don't want anyone to think for a second that they represent the planning board. These are my comments. And again, okay, I understand the council needs to adopt the ordinance, and I understand from a legal perspective what happens if we don't. So my comments to you tonight are the same comments I've made to the planning board, the same comments I've made to this council many times. And those are strictly planning comments. Everyone knows that the site plan for Route 1 is in front of the planning board, and while I will certainly have comments on that, and I will certainly make recommendations regarding their site plan, overall, I'm on record as supporting that development. It's easy to say that like a smaller type development. The bottom line is that the council has hired a fiscal impact professional, and the bottom line for a fiscal impact professional, and the reason the planning board recommended that you hire someone, is because they are to look at that profit margin of the developer. And if indeed, let's make something up silly, okay? For the record, this is silly. Somebody comes in and they're proposing 1,000 units across the street. Well, that profit is too much. They don't need all those units to pay for the purchase of the property and the demolition of the buildings and the environmental cleanup and the construction and everything. But there obviously is a cost to all that. So the developer has to get something back. The developer is also entitled to a legitimate profit. So therefore, saying I'd like a smaller one is great, but if you want a smaller one, you'll continue to look at which across the street for the rest of our lives. Moving beyond that, okay, so I favor Russo 1. I wish the council, and I'm on record as saying this, had actually stuck with the higher number, because a higher number across the street would have made more sense, because that would allow you to have fewer units on the south side. I wish the council had done that. But Russo 1, in terms of the redevelopment plan, is over the, what is it, water under the bridge or over the dam. Russo 2 is headed that way also. So what that leaves us is with the other sites that are within the settlement and are within the housing agreement. There, I've asked council, and Mr. Renaud and I have spoken briefly about this, and I understand there are some answers, but at the same time, from a planning perspective, not a legal perspective. The borough hired a firm, we had New Jersey Transit actually pay for a TOD study downtown. That TOD study recommended mixed use, higher density, housing, commercial, within a certain radius of the train station. It included Petro Cristale, it included the lot behind us, it included downtown, included the King's Mall, I thought, and it included the North Side Mall. It did not include, for good reason, the paperboard company. I'm on record as being opposed to housing out on paperboard company. I will continue to maintain that. I recommended this borough, as Councilwoman Tedesco indicated earlier, hire private consultants. They are the authors. The planner there is the author of the overlay zone for South Avenue. I recommended this council look at an overlay zone for the North Avenue Mall that would provide the same number of units and the same number of affordable units that are currently being discussed, because there is no redevelopment plan yet for the paperboard company. on the North Avenue Mall. So we have an overlay zone in the South Avenue Mall, overlay zone in the North Avenue Mall. The Guard Paperboard does not have to provide housing. And I do not believe the Guard Paperboard Company is an appropriate area for housing. If you look at the Raton Valley line, you look at Cranford, you look at Westfield, Fanwick, Plainfield, within a certain radius of those train stations is where you have a mixed density, mixed use, high density development, commercial first floor apartments and above. It is not one continuous mixed use all the way from Newark out to Denellen and Raritan along the Raton Valley line. It's centered at train stations.
Could you please summarize that?
Yes, I will, 20 seconds. I recommended the council relook at, and I understand things are done already. As an ordinance can amend something, a new ordinance can amend an old ordinance. I think we just had a tax adoption that, is going to amend the tax plan, tax law. So what I would recommend to council is that let's look at North Avenue Mall as an overlay zone, just as the South Avenue Mall is, and that we do not advance housing on the Paperboard Company. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You want to hear from, no, I'm sorry, when everybody's done, you probably want to hear from redevelopment council, who's here.
Yes, we'd like to.
No, why don't we,
No.
go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen, Council Bruce Patterson, 325 Willow Avenue. This ordinance 17-30, I have an issue with this, and I mentioned it last meeting too. To me, we're looking at a redevelopment plan that was basically approved and mandated by the courts and the fair share housing, that it's supposed to be 52 units, stacked units. I can read that fair share housing plan document, but it talked about 52 stacked townhomes. And now you're looking at it on page 10 on the revised redevelopment plan of 73 rental units. Now, to me, you're going against what the fair share housing plan and what was mandated by the courts. So to tell you the truth, it's illegal unless you first petition to have it approved for the 73 units, since it's already 52 units written in stone. So something's wrong here. I don't know if you want to table it. It sounds like, according to Mr. Neerstead, that you probably should table it for other issues. But this is an issue. I'm not a lawyer, but to tell you the truth, unless there's case law that's saying you can change these fair share housing plans ahead of time and then revise them later on in front of the courts, then, unless Mr. Renaud can say something. Another thing is, then there was this flyer. This is a second flyer, or it was on the, I saw it on the website about the Russo 2, and I'm just saying, what's with these flyers? First it was 2 counselors, now it's another counselor sending out something by the internet. And I mentioned this also last time, that possibly at the start of next year, you should maybe have a policy of what can and cannot be sent out by counselors on their own volition. I know it's freedom of speech, as you mentioned. However, it just seems it's out of the decorum that counselors can do that. It'd be nice if they create maybe a citizen committee and then send out the flyer, but under the names of the counselors, something's not right there. It's not their responsibility to send out flyers, so possibly a policy could be created. Another thing about this redevelopment plan is finances. Nobody knows the finances. It came about on Russo 1, that also the finances were at the last minute, and I looked at them, and there were some serious number questions, which even Mr. Russo himself mentioned that, yes, some of the numbers are high. This could be a second time again that these numbers are too high. And we're not here to take on the liability of these developers that will pay, and just throwing it out, twice as much for the property, just so they can get their hands on there, and then claim that, they're under duress with these high costs, and that therefore they must have more quantities of rentals or more quantities of townhouses, et cetera, et cetera. So, there's something that really, you guys really have to take a step back and think about it. The finances are missing, the legalities, unless there's case law, it sounds like this thing is illegal what you're doing. So at this point, I suggest, please table this until further, until further deliberation. And in addition, you were talking about on the consent agenda, Vic Venable of Harbor Consultants, or not Vic, but one of the subordinates. And something like that, it sounds like it's being rushed through, and it should be deliberated properly in a committee and then put forth on the agenda. I think it's rushing through. A lot of these things just seem to be so political that it's being rushed through. I've been paying attention to the council, in fact, government in Union County for many years, and I can just smell what's going on. Something's not right here. So that's my comments. Thank you very much.
Did you address that first question?
Yeah, well, yes, before we get to redevelopment council, I'll address a few of them. Let's start with, well, let me take them in the order they were commented on. I'll start with the paperboard. And for that, you need a little bit of history. So we have to start with, in June, I think it was in June, maybe May of 2015, the council authorized the filing of this declaratory judgment, which started the affordable housing litigation. And the reason was that unless the borough got on board with with having an approved, adopted, fair share plan and housing plan element, as well as all of the ordinances that eventually were allowed to be developed on, or as of, I think it was 5 days into, I forget now, but some number of days into July of 2015, the borough would have been out of compliance with its constitutional obligation to provide for affordable housing, and anybody who had property or who had development rights to property anywhere in the borough could have brought what was called a builder's remedy lawsuit. I know I don't have to tell the council what a builder's remedy lawsuit is, but for the public, it means that anybody that has property can say that affordable housing can be built on that property. And so we started the process. And it's not an easy process, and it's not a process that we're necessarily in control of. It's under the control of the court, the special master, and to some extent, the other litigants, including the Fair Share Housing Center, and the people who have property who have intervened in the lawsuit. And so everything that happens with respect to affordable housing is a matter of some negotiation, but the numbers of units of affordable housing that the courts in the past and that Fair Share and some courts in this state have already approved of are such that the borough is frankly never going to meet those numbers and isn't even planning on meeting those numbers now. To some extent, we are at the mercy of, as I said, the court, Fair Share, the intervenors, and the special master. So having said that, let me address these one at a time. First, the ordinance itself is not problematic with respect to the settlement agreement or the Fair Share plan that's been adopted. The Fair Share plan will, in fact, have to be amended, but all of this is being done with the full knowledge and acquiescence, if not agreement, of the court, the special master, Fair Share Housing Center, and the intervenor, which is technically 490 South Avenue LLC, but which is, as you know them, as the Russo Company. So all of those changes on the what we call South Avenue 1 or Russo 1 and South Avenue 2 and Russo 2 are all being done with everybody's knowledge and agreement. So those are not, as Mr. Patterson asked, a problem with respect to the agreement. Let me just address the rushed through suggestion. Yes, things are rushed. I don't like the phraseology rushed through, because it suggests that either the council is rushing it or that we're rushing it. It's other factors that are rushing. We have gotten, and I've shared all these with the council and with the public to some extent, they're posted on the internet as well, is the court has set deadlines and we're required to meet those deadlines. Now, we have been able to circumvent some deadlines, but we've been able to circumvent those deadlines when all of the parties who are interested in that particular deadline are in agreement. So, for example, if the Fair Share Housing Center and the intervenors and the court and the special master do not object because we're in the process either of resolving some problem or making something better or, for example, providing more affordable housing, we do have some leeway. But we just got, as of October 30th, some new dates, and with deadlines that vary from 60 days, which is the end of the year, some were 90 days, some were 120 days. So yes, there is a rush. Is there anybody here who is trying to rush things through? The answer is no, but there are deadlines and the deadlines have to be met. Now, the last item I'll address is the paperboard. I understand Mr. Nierstedt's desire that the paperboard site not be residential. However, that simply isn't an option for several reasons. One of them is that when the original agreement was being negotiated, as you know, we've got a need which far exceeds our ability to, and when I say need, I'm talking about a need that's ascribed to us that far exceeds our ability to provide affordable housing, even if we were willing to put it on every available site. So we have an unmet need under our proposal. What unmet need means is that Fair Share Housing is in a position to say, what about this site? What about that site? What about that site? Because we are not proposing sites sufficient to meet the prospective need that is being ascribed to us. So we have, we'll call it, for the purpose of this discussion, an unmet need problem. So it was not us necessarily, but rather Fair Share Housing Center, which is very knowledgeable, amazingly, with respect to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of municipalities in this state and exactly what redevelopment sites they have, what vacant land they have, under whose control those sites are, and so forth. And so even if we were not proposing to put anything on that site was proposed to us by Fair Share. You also had an owner who wanted to develop the site. So that site was included, and it was included with and through some of the guidance of our affordable housing planner specifically, and also through Mike Mistretta from Arbor Consultants, in terms of that having been a site that was discussed as having the potential to provide affordable housing. So can we now at this point change? No. Could we suggest other sites? Yes, and what would be said was, fine, that can go towards the unmet need that you have. So, so coming up with additional sites or different sites is not going to help us at this point in time. So we have an agreement. This is what the agreement provides for. There's no way to avoid that agreement, absent some agreement by the owner of the property, and I'm not sure at this point whether it's still Millen Industries. Somebody said that they had closed, so if that's the case, I believe that it's called K&K Developers, but it's actually the Wilf organization, as I understand it. So, so no, we can't unilaterally decide that we're not going to have housing on that site. It was already part of the public hearing, it was included in the housing element fair share plan, it was included in the settlement agreement, and that's the way it is. There's nothing else to be said about it. You could have a higher density with more affordable housing, but having no residential component on that site is simply not, it's not feasible, it's not going to happen, it can't happen. It's not that I don't want it to happen, it's that it just is not going to happen based on what the agreements are and the plans and so forth that have already been decided. Any questions as far as any of those things? Okay, then I think we're up to...
We just lost the rights of our town.
We've had this discussion before. I do not, I understand this, I have never sat on the Supreme Court. I have not decided that there's such a thing as a builder's remedy lawsuit. I have not decided that there was any particular amount of affordable housing. I haven't decided that every town has to provide affordable housing. I did not come up with the idea for a builder's remedy to satisfy what the state should be paying for, because if affordable housing is mandated, then in my opinion the state should be paying for it and making some provision instead of a builder's remedy which requires that you build 5 times as much housing or 6 times as much housing as you need affordable housing. But I didn't make any of those rules. All I am trying to do, as you well know, is to keep the borough from losing a lawsuit that it can't possibly win and winding up in worse position than it is now.
Thank you, Mr. Arnott. Thank you. Mr. Worthington, would you like to say a few words?
Sure, Mayor.
Thank you.
Let me just try to synopsize, if I can, where we stand right now. What is before the council tonight is 3 options. One is, as Mr. Arnott just addressed, do nothing, reject both plans, and then you put yourself in a position of builder's remedy, roll the dice, see where it goes. I have stood here before and said, knowing that no one likes this, but that you have a bad choice in front of you, and the other 2 are worse and horrible. So I'm recommending that you adopt one of the 2 plans. As you're aware, you have the townhome plan is introduced. You've held your public hearing, so you are in a position to take that off the table tonight, adopt it, and that becomes the redevelopment plan. You also have what I'll call the apartment plan, which was just reviewed by the planning board. We had a public meeting over at the school. We went through some questions there. That is also before you tonight, before public we just had a public hearing. That is also in a position to be adopted tonight if you choose to. As to that, what you need to do is the planning board made certain recommendations, and it seems clear to me, and I think Mr. Mearstead intimated it earlier, and the planning board members we met with the other night intimated that they expect action to be taken. But to comply with the statute, because they made recommendations that you're not going to adopt, you need to just state for the record why you're not going to adopt it. And that was the purpose of the email that I sent on Friday, but I found out today none of you received until today, and my apologies for that. I didn't get any bounce back, so I assumed it had gone through. But basically, what you need to do, if you're going to move forward with that, they asked you to consider less density. That issue is gone. That train has left the station. That left the station when we went from 315 to 298 on Rousseau 1. The balance are really site plan issues, and they can be addressed, or they can be addressed either in a site plan, redevelopment agreement, or both. So that is, we can deal with those. They're legitimate comments, but we don't need to deal with them in the redevelopment plan. And then the final issue is, as I understand, there's been some discussion about, well, we don't know what the finances are. No, we don't know what the finances are. We're not sure what the plan is yet, but that is going to be the subject of additional action by this council anyway. We've hired Acacia. Acacia is poised to move forward once Rousseau produces a pro forma that we can look at and drill down as we did on Rousseau 1, and then that would be addressed in due course. And the council will make certain determinations with regard to that when we get to that point. But you don't have that now, but that is not relevant to whether you're going to adopt the apartment plan or the townhome plan. That would be relevant later as to where we're going. That adopting a plan, again, gets you back to the choice, and Councilwoman Cooper, I understand where you are, but it gets back to that choice of whether you want to say, I don't want either plan, and reject it. We don't have a third option. There isn't a door number 3. Well, there's door number 3. It's horrible. It's door number 3, but that's, certainly, you're not being deprived of your ability to decide. It's just you're going to be severely limited in what those choices are, and that's got nothing to do with anything other than a 1983 decision before the New Jersey Supreme Court called Mount Laurel, where they said that there's this concept of a building remedy. So,
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Northgrave, let's say, for instance, we adopt the rental plan, we move forward, we get a case here to look at the financials, and let's say, I don't believe this will be the case because I don't think Bruce has any incentive to do this, but let's say it's crazy profit margin on his end. What is our recourse at that point? What can we do?
you're not going to see a crazy profit margin. What you're going to do is you might see, I agree with you, I don't think you're going to see it. I don't think you're going to see anything off the charts. I've seen these deals, we saw it even with Russo One, I've seen it in other deals. They're especially the first 10 years, are going to be thin, and they're going to be thin because of the affordable housing. The affordable housing is a real drag on the profitability of a project because your operating expense is going to be the same as it is for a market, for a variety of reasons. But one of them is your operating expense, your construction costs are going to be the same for an affordable unit as they are for a market unit, but you're not going to get the same rate of return. But your option then would be to reject. You basically have agreed that you will consider a long-term tax exemption for him. He says he's going to need it to make the deal happen. Your ability would be to reject that long-term tax exemption, and if we can show that the profits are crazy, as you put it, then I don't think there's a court would say you were arbitrary and capricious in denying him, make him build it. The reality is where this all comes in is they will, as Mr. Renata alluded to earlier, the other remedy to this is to come in with 150 units. If you can't get a long-term tax exemption, because then eventually there's the economies of scale build in, and you can make your profit, but your numbers have to go through the roof to make that happen. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to close the public hearing on ordinance 17-30?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have a motion to adopt ordinance 17-30?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second?
Any discussion?
I will not be supporting this. Big reason why, this comes from somebody that supported Russo One. We don't have this. This is a big booklet here that we received that goes into a lot of different things, from finances to traffic impact study. And you could say it's not required. You can say that there is no justifiable need for that. But I'm going to tell you, if we received it before, why don't we receive it yet? My whole thing is, something is going to go there. But at 73 units, that's coming down to 42 units per acre. At what point do we draw the line as to what's dense? If it was all about money, right, why don't we go, what Bill is suggesting, why don't we put 150 units there? And just, we'll take the gross of 10% and we'll work the deal out that way. I think we have to worry about the fact that it borders a residential area, and I do appreciate what Bill Neerstedt said at the last planning board meeting. If you were there, you would hear that he discussed increasing the density here and decreasing it there. It's a great, it was something that wasn't portrayed clearly to us last year, that one would affect the other. They were talked about as two separate projects. So for me, without something like this coming from Russo for this project, which was designated as a separate project on a number of occasions, I would expect another one of these. I don't have one, I can't support it right now. At some point I would, but not right now.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I will be supporting this tonight. I believe that our council has really clearly shown the options, and I believe that I think it is imperative for us to not roll the dice. I'm not willing to roll the dice on Garwood. I'm not willing to roll the dice on litigation that I think would be highly unaffordable for us to be able to go through if things don't move forward. As we heard earlier, the Fair Share Housing is a very aggressive organization, and I have read countless articles about them pursuing litigation and how that's affected towns, and I'm not willing to roll the dice on Garwood for that, and I believe that we still have recourse if we need to in terms of the finances later on, so I'm not willing to roll the dice, and I will be supporting this.
Anyone else?
I just want to talk about this a little from a different angle, although I agree with Councilman Lazaro. I can't say I'm not willing to roll the dice on this and risk any builder's remedy lawsuits. I just can't see doing that to the residents. But I want to talk about this a little bit in terms of the two different plans, the townhomes versus the rentals, because I know a number of residents still have questions about how this came about, and it seems like a flip-flop. But I, as someone who personally pushed for the townhomes way back when, and there still is a part of me that wants to want that plan. However, when we did send out the notice for the town hall, when we had the town hall and both options were explained, I was still on the fence. I think some of the townspeople can attest to that. I was still on the fence about which way to go. But I spoke to many residents after that town hall, stuck around and spoke to them. I also received many emails and phone calls. Now, not all of them were in favor of the rentals, but I have to say a good majority of them were. They were very concerned about the 3 bedrooms, as we all were, which is why we proposed Russo giving us a second option. That was the big deal, the 3 bedrooms. Going back down to the 52 units, even if they were apartments, you would still up the bedroom makeup, and we'd be right back where we began. So I had to at that point sort of put my emotional side of this to the side and say what is the best thing financially for the town. What were the residents saying to me that were concerned them? And so I had to then say I support the rental plan. So that's sort of where I went along in this journey and how I got to this, and I will be supporting this rental plan today because the deadline is here, and I just can't see us putting our residents in jeopardy. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll just keep it short, Mayor. I just want to say, back on November 14th, sitting up here, I had made a comment about getting the financials on this South Avenue 2 site as well. But after learning the facts, as Mr. Northgrave spoke to them before, I realized that the debate here tonight should be about 52 townhomes or 73 rental units. I agree with Councilwoman Blumenstock. I went through the same thing. And this council negotiated in such a way that now, today before us with this 73 rental option, we have a far better option than what we did originally. We had first pushed based on resident feedback to get the for sale option. They gave us the for sale option. No guarantee, but it was very likely for sale, as they said at the last town hall meeting at Lincoln School. So we got that. We asked for more municipal parking. They conceded a bit more of that. Then we came back and said, after listening to residents' concerns about 3 bedrooms, we now want to see what you could do with less 3 bedrooms. They came back with rentals with a far fewer bedroom count, from 130 bedrooms to 108 bedrooms, and far fewer 3-bedroom units that tend to generate more school children. We asked again for more municipal parking. They gave that. The planning board had put out concerns about height, about open space, all of those things we made gains on. So therefore tonight we do have a far better plan looking at us than we did originally, and I would hope, and I encourage this council, while it's not perfect, Russo 1 was certainly not perfect at 298 units, We, as a council, in a bipartisan way, got behind a redevelopment plan for 298 apartments at Russo One because of all the pluses that it brought us to this town in redeveloping a blighted, underutilized site. And I really encourage this council today to be responsible, to meet our court order deadlines, and not just say no because of one reason or another, but really look deep and say, if we all voted no, what would happen? This town would be in jeopardy, we'd be risking our taxpayer dollars. It's something Mr. Renaud, sitting here publicly, says we can't win. I'm not willing to risk that, and I will be voting yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor, before we do that, I just want to put on the record that you will be voting to reject, at this time, the recommendations of the planning board, and that because of that, this ordinance is to be passed by a 2/3 vote, or it will not pass. Thank you.
Just, if I could, Mayor.
Yes.
Just statutory requires that the reasons be on the record, and I'm assuming that if there's an aye vote, it is because for the reasons set forth by both me and Mr. Renaud,
Yes.
just so the record is clear in
Okay.
case there's ever a challenge.
Thank you.
Yes.
Catherine, please, roll call.
Councilwoman Blumenstock.
Aye.
Councilman Kukrow.
No.
Councilman Lazaro.
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli.
Aye.
Councilman Sarno.
No.
Council President Tedisco.
Aye.
Thank you. Move on to council standing committee reports and other reports. Police, Councilman Petrozelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I am pleased to recommend Mr. John Patterson for the position of parking enforcement officer. Mr. Patterson has been a resident of the borough for many years and has previously served on the planning board. His enthusiasm and dedication will be a great asset to the department. Second, the holidays should be a festive and happy time spent with loved ones, but drinking and driving can put a damper. The U.S. National Institute of Alcohol Abuse Alcoholism reports that drunk drivers play a role in a full 40% of traffic deaths over Christmas and New Year's. That's an increase of 12% over the rest of December. The Borough Police Department would like to remind everybody to enjoy the holidays responsibly, and please do not drink and drive. That's all from my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Public Health, Councilwoman Kukrow.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Streets and Roads, Councilwoman Blumenstock.
No official report, Mayor. I just want to notify the council that during the last mini snow event, the 96 dump truck did break down. The drive shaft rotted off while they were at the county filling with salt. The department is now looking at having the salt spreader put on the 92 truck to use that for the immediate future. So I will update the committee and council on that as we move forward.
Thank you.
We'll ride it off with the drive shaft. Do you have any other details?
It just came completely off.
Like there's usually clamps that are holding this thing up. I mean, generally speaking, that doesn't fall off. I'm just.
It's
If I may,
exposed to
Councilwoman,
salts. and constant
it actually cracked. The shaft, yes.
Makes a little more sense. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Fire, Councilman Sarno.
The fire committee hereby approves the membership application updated with Borough Cranford against passes physical and background requirements. That's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you. Finance, Council President Tedesco.
No report, Mayor.
Buildings and Grounds, Councilman Lazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. On Wednesday, December 13th, the Buildings and Grounds Committee met with Brian Gates of Gametown Incorporated, along with our clerk, DPW foreman, and engineer. We had a productive conversation about a potential timeline for implementing the park to reduce interruptions, and we forged a plan to use our DPW workers to help with removal of old equipment to reduce overall costs. We also discussed more specific design upgrades such as shading and location of different elements of the park. We'll be having another meeting on Wednesday, January 3rd to start to finalize ideas and to bring it to the full council and public for their comments and suggestions. I'm also happy to report that the rec center repair process is underway. The project manager at Patagonia Roofing and Construction has projected that over the course of the remaining part of December, demolition and removal of damaged and or defective parts of the building, along with installation of temporary walls for security, will be completed. Come the beginning of January, installation of floor panels and doors, followed by installation tile flooring, will take place. Then a final cleanup should conclude the project towards the end of the third week in January. This is the projected timeline, and if there are any changes, I'll be sure to update everyone on the progress of that repair. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Laws and License, Councilwoman Kukrow.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Petrozelli.
No report.
Thank you. Garwood Senior Citizen Liaison, Councilman Blumenstock.
Thank you, Mayor. We had a very festive last meeting on December 21st. A new club at Lincoln School called the Works of Hearts Club, and comprised of 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, made some crafts for our seniors. The club, run by Mrs. Carol Del Conte, made ornaments and light up snowmen for all of the members to enjoy, and it was very much appreciated. Our special meal that day was also donated by Julie's Funeral Home, so a big thank you to them. We all ate way too much and then had fun playing bingo. So our new year begins on January 4th. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. If you'd like to have the Mayor Appreciation Award given to those students, everyone has to do that.
I will talk to
Thank you. Library's Mayor's Representative, Councilman Lazaro.
Thank you, Mayor. Santa's visit to the library was a success. On December 16th, over 50 children visited with Santa. Each child received a goodie bag and had their picture taken in front of the library's new holiday backdrop. You can check out their pictures on their Facebook page. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., the library will be a drive-in movie. Kids from pre-K to first grade will turn large boxes into cars and then sit in them to watch the movie Cars 3. Children must be accompanied by an adult, and registration is required. On Thursday, January 28th at 1 p.m., kids in 2nd grade and up will enjoy Despicable Me 3, December 28th, and participate in some fun games and button making after the movie, and also registration is required. On January 10th at 3 p.m., Inventive Investigation, a STEM program, will begin its 7-week run. The program will explore the energy of motion, life under the ocean, robots, green energy sources, Newton's law of motions, and much more. The program is limited to 20 children, 3rd grade and up. Registration is required, and currently there is a waiting list. On January 15th at 10 a.m., Natalie Garcia will discuss the Retired and Senior Volunteer Program. Learn more about opportunities presented by the program to tutor, garden, visit the homebound, or work in food pantries. This program is for persons 55 and older, and also registration is required. And don't forget to check out their library passes offering free admission to Grounds for Sculpture, Imagine That, Intrepid, Liberty Hall, and Newark Museum. The library's regular programs include Kid Knitting Club every Monday and Thursday at 10:30, book clubs Monday, January 4th, and Thursday, January 22nd, Design at STEM every Tuesday at 3, Adult Craft Tuesday, January 16th at 6, every Wednesday at 10:30 for story time, Kids Craft Wednesday, January 18th at 3 p.m., Lego Club Wednesday, January 11th and 25th at 3 p.m., movie time every Friday at 10 a.m. And the Garwood Library is open Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m., Fridays from 9 to 4:30, and Saturdays from 9 to 1. The library will be closed Saturday, December 30th and January 1st for New Year's. That's all for my report.
Thank you, Councilman. School Board Liaison, Councilman Sarno.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Celebration of public events and holidays, Council President Tedesco.
Thank you, Mayor. The Luminary Sale and annual holiday house decorating contest both went very well as their winter events. Congratulations to the house winner for first place, which was 265th Avenue. Second place went to 347 Beach Avenue. Third place went to 234 Myrtle. I want to thank Carolyn Puari for all her time and hard work as the chair of the Celebrations Committee this year, as well as all the time and hard work of the other volunteer members of that committee. And that's all for my report, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Union County Air Traffic Noise Advisory Board Representative, Councilman Blumenstock.
No report, Mayor.
Administrative Review Committee, Councilwoman Kukrow.
No report, Mayor.
Historical Committee, Council President Tedesco.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you. Parking Committee, Councilman Sarno.
And the only thing I'm going to add is we support the police committee and the hiring of John Patterson, lifelong resident here, for a parking enforcement officer. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Cabinet Officers Reports.
Municipal Court Administrator LaShawn Duran, monthly report for November 2017.
Do you have a motion to accept the officers' reports?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Public comment, anyone in the audience who wishes to address the mayor and council, please step to the microphone, state your full name and address, limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I'll go at the end.
You might be the end.
I think you are the,
Good evening, Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Bruce Patterson, 325 Willow Avenue. again, just because Happy New Year, you know, moving forward, and hopefully 2018 is prosperous. Just a couple items, you know, obviously, I guess we should be aware that the rate of pension return has been decreased from 7.58 to 7%. So therefore, we're probably looking at some kind of cost impact, whoever the financial chair is next year.
That's up to the mayor.
Looking for hints.
Okay. There's some kind of cost impact coming down the pike. I don't know who figures it out or whatever, you know, the state's obviously going to tell us. Also, you know, it is sad. I mean, you know, we're talking about the Russo 1, the Russo 2, and I've said this before. I mean, you know, it seems like our hands are tied, and you really have to wonder what's the sense of having public meetings with public input. It's kind of facetious, but I mean, it's just a snowball rolling down the hill. And no matter what we do, we can't do anything. And just a last question. It was back talking about Russo 2, and Borough Attorney Renaud mentioned. He said all parties are concurring with whatever the changes are as we go along, and I guess that's Special Master McKenzie and the Fair Share Housing Advocate, and I guess even the courts. So I guess my question, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not, but by all rights, this concurrence or agreement to all the changes should be by whether it's an email or a letter, but I would assume it could be operable if I wanted to see, you know, that they all do agree with the changes. Is that true?
I guess you could submit an Oprah request and see what you get. Well, I'm just saying, I'm not certain what's in writing, what was discussed at case management conferences, what was talked about when we appeared on the 30th. I don't think you'd get a lot if you Oprah'd it, but, you know, if you want, I'm not going to tell you not to.
Yeah, these are serious, you know, changes in reference to the public's
Well, the
interest.
reason why, because I'll tell you the reason, because the increase in the number of units increases the amount of affordable housing. So obviously, Fair Share is not going to object. They'd like it if we had, you know, twice as much affordable housing, so they're not going to object. Russo is not going to object because they've coordinated with the borough in coming up with an alternative plan. The Special Master is not going to object if neither Fair Share nor Russo object. So it's not it shouldn't be a great surprise to say, why is nobody objecting? Because they're not objecting because it increases the number of affordable units, not by a lot, but by 1 or 2 anyway. So they're not, if you knocked it down, if you said we're going to do 30 units, then we'd have a problem. But you're not going to have a problem if you increase the number of units.
I appreciate what you're saying, you know, and I've dealt with the government for many years through construction. Okay, but it seems like normally the government dots the i's and crosses the t's with proper proper emails or letters. This is in the construction end, and I deal with the armed forces like the Navy and the Army and the DLA, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, these guys are sticklers, but I mean, like, here we are looking at change.
It is.
And I understand what you're saying, but
It's not that it's not in writing. I mean, if you want the details, you have, and you feel like there should be something in writing, there's a Special Master's report on the, for the October 30th hearing, which is, I believe, and I think you may have opened that already. It's dated, I believe, October 24th, and she talks about wanting the new plans for Russo 2, for Russo 1 and Russo 2, actually. Then we do have, I know that there are emails, if that's what you're talking about, sending the new plans to her. I mean, it is, you know, I wouldn't tell you that they weren't, that they were aware of it if they weren't.
I try to be combative. Maybe I do, but
At this point, could you summarize, please?
It just seems like, you know, this is kind of a helter-skelter situation as we go down the pike. Like I said, the snowball rolling down the hill. that Councilwoman Kukrow is saying it's just no good for Garwood, and that's to be seen, obviously, you know, like 3, 4, 5 years down the line, but it's just that it boggles my mind that all this is being done, and there's changes and everything, and I do understand what you're saying there. And nothing's really in writing possibly. I do agree with what you're saying. If it's more, then everybody's happy, but it sure sounds like something should be confirmed in writing. So, but that's my comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bernard.
Okay.
Evening, Mayor and Council, Al Del Conte, 545 Memphis Avenue. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all.
You too. Thank you.
Notifications on the Russo development. The last planning board meeting, Mayor and Councilman Sarna, you know there was only like 3 residents.
That's correct.
I happen to be one of them.
You're absolutely right.
I had just gotten my notice, registered letter in the mail today, telling me about that meeting. Okay, and that was on December 14th, I believe it was. It was mailed on the 1st at a Carlstadt registered letter. If council can do something to at least notify the residents that are getting these
You're
notifications.
talking about the 200-foot notification?
The site plan hearing for Russo one, I think you're referring to, and we have part 1, I guess, and.
The one you just had?
Yeah, that's what it
Yes,
was.
my notification just came in the mail today.
Are you saying that you never, understand you say it just got delivered. You saying that the mailman never came to your house between December 1st?
I get my mail every single day. I just received that
You-
today.
Like, it didn't come and nobody was there that day?
No.
No?
Never got a notification
How
that
can it
nobody was
be,
there.
I mean, you know, yeah, you can't blame the developer.
I'm not
I'd love
blaming,
to
I'm
hear-
not blaming
I
the
know, I'd
developer.
love to hear from the post office how it could be
That's where
that something
it's-
could be
that-
mailed on
that's-
December 1st and not get there until December 26th. That's ridiculous.
I'm not blaming anybody sitting
No,
here, okay? I'm not blaming the developer.
No, I
Okay?
didn't hear you were blaming the developer. I just wanted to
It's
clarify the facts.
It's
If
here.
that's the case, that it was mailed on the 1st and appears to be postmarked on that date and didn't get to you for the 26th, I don't know how, I mean, if we can't count on the post office to deliver anything any faster than 26 days, then we have a problem.
Well, Garwood's not doing it, but the mail's been a problem for quite a while.
Yes. Not that bad. I mean, I agree,
Oh,
it's
yes.
bad, but
Oh,
not
yes.
26 days.
They're coming 7:30, 8 o'clock at night sometimes, so.
Mr. Del Conte, if we can have a separate conversation, maybe in a day or two, I will go to Cranford personally and find out what's going on.
Well, what does he do though? Because you need 10 days, 10 business days notice for that.
Only has to be 10 days mailed. That's the law.
Well,
And then,
So what
was
does he
mailed
do?
12/1, you said?
They did mail. It's postmarked.
Yes, it's postmarked December 1st.
Okay.
that could be a loophole, so.
I mean, I would have expected more residents to be here at that meeting, okay? Just to hear what was going on or to say what things were going to be, but there wasn't any. Now, is it because they didn't get this? I don't know. Or because they just figured
It's done.
and you can't do anything more about it? Whatever. And you know, I come in a lot and I complain about streets and roads and construction and the way things are done and how things are done. And it was a lengthy conversation. I spoke to many people about it. I don't know if everybody's aware of what happened up here, but Center Street was repaved last year, okay? And last week, Friday, we had a utility company come in and poke 3 holes in it. I thought we had a 5-year moratorium on that. I know that utility companies need to do work, but everything that was told me was all known way before any construction was done. You want to talk about a waste of taxpayers' dollars? Okay? I don't care how they're going to do the repair. I don't care what way the repair is going to be. It shouldn't have been done. I drive over 2 of them holes every single day, okay? Been waiting years for that street to be repaved, okay? At least you can wait 5 years. I don't agree with it.
Where were these holes? Where were the
Clint
holes?
is looking into it.
I think it's the 300 block, right here.
The new construction.
The new house, the
The
house
new
that
house.
burnt down, they
Right.
brought gas into that,
Right.
to that house. And they poked 3 holes in the street. So, I could beat a dead horse till it's dead s'more. It's done, okay, it's over, it's done when it's done.
Looking into it, about permitting and notification.
Apartment Park, there's plenty of lane to go around for everybody. Okay, it needs to be done, we need to move on and get it done and correct it. And, I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
concerns, and I will get back to you. Anyone else?
On one.
Okay, well, hearing none, we'll move on to consent agenda. I understand we have some possible deletions.
I want to poll 17-242.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the amended consent agenda as presented?
What was that?
No, that's the wrong one, wait a minute.
Hang on.
241.
Can I ask about 242? Not Poland? What's generally office furniture? Kathleen, do you know off the top of your head? What does that consist of? What line item is, what could be?
Can I just say we're gonna pull it for comments?
Okay.
All right, which both?
Yeah. We'll have a discussion then, no problem. Okay.
Didn't we do, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
On the office furniture, didn't we do a capital ordinance like 2 months
Yes.
ago that
Yes.
included
Yes.
this
We did.
furniture? Isn't that where the
Yeah,
money
that
comes
was-
from?
That was for
Is
the
that the
police
same
fund.
police?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah.
Yes, it was both
the same
police
price.
and,
Yeah.
That's all.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Because it was phrased differently last time, that's why I was.
Okay, then we'll just,
Just 241?
242, Councilwoman, 242 is the one you mentioned?
241.
241.
241, okay. Go
Roll
back to
call for
this.
the amended?
Yeah, for the amended, please.
Okay,
Well,
Council,
we have a motion first.
So moved, Mayor.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Blumenstock? Aye. Councilwoman Kukrow?
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro?
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli?
Aye.
Councilman Sarno?
Aye.
Council President Tedesco?
aye.
Do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 17-241?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
Second?
Discussion? Nope. Nope what?
No, I'm
No.
sorry.
No discussion?
No discussion.
Oh. You were worried, I'm sorry.
I'll just make a comment on this one.
Okay.
For the benefit of the public, this is one of the many steps that we're ordered to take as set in the, by the court in our order that was backdated to our October 30th compliance hearing. So by having an administrative agent, we're in compliance with one of the orders by the court.
Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Since it's pulled.
Okay. Roll call, please, Kathleen.
Councilwoman Blumenstock?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kukrow?
No.
Councilman Lazaro?
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli?
Aye.
Councilman Sarno?
Aye.
Council President Tedesco?
Aye.
Okay, moving on, does the council have any new business this evening? Hearing none. Kathleen, payment of claims?
Be it resolved that the following claims as approved be and the same are hereby ordered paid for resolutions.
I stand corrected, we have a resolution that is not on the consent agenda?
Yes.
You had mentioned something about.
Yeah.
Yes, that was to hire Harbor Consultants to be the planner for the paperboard site.
Okay, so that'd be 17-245.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Discussion.
If anybody has any?
Okay.
I think this is the right move to do.
Okay.
We've had plenty of meetings with the joint planning board meeting and everything, and the one thing about Harbor Consultants, it consists of one of the principals who lives in town, has a vested interest here, and in my discussion with him, is a valuable asset. No disregard to any other firm, they have all kinds of reputations and whatnot, but you can't, there's an intangible when someone that lives here, and that's something you can't put a price tag on. So I fully support this resolution for the paperboard site. Thank you.
Roll call, please, Catherine.
Councilwoman Blumenstock?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kukrow?
No.
Councilman Lazaro?
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli?
Aye.
Councilman Sarno?
Aye.
Council President Sadisco?
Aye.
Okay, I understand there's no new business this evening for the council. Now we'll move on to payment of claims. Catherine, please.
Be it resolved that the following claims as approved be and the same are hereby ordered paid when properly signed and verified, and the payment of payrolls as listed is hereby confirmed and ratified.
Do I have a motion to pay payment of claims?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Blumenstock?
Aye.
Councilwoman Kukrow?
Yes.
Councilman Lazaro?
Aye.
Councilman Petrozelli?
Aye.
Councilman Sarno?
Aye.
Council President Sadisco?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Before we go on to adjournment, I just have a statement to read over here. It is with a heavy heart that tonight we say goodbye to Councilman Louis Petrozelli. Councilman Petrozelli has diligently served the borough of Garwood for 9 years, and I want to express my deepest gratitude and thanks for his dedication, commitment to Garwood and his residents. Lou has always been sincere, reliable, and professional, and has never shirked any of his duties or responsibilities as a councilman. As we will surely see him around town, we can now greet him as Fireman Petrozelli. I have recently, because he has recently accepted a position in the Garwood Fire Department. Thank you, Lou. I wish you and your family well in the new year and in your new line of service as a resident of Garwood. Thank you. Anyone else have?
I just want to say a quick note to Councilman Petrozelli. I just want to thank you for your hard work for the past 9 years. And I want to say how much I've appreciated working with you this past year. I know your heart and soul goes into this work, and we will be sad to see you go. But I think it speaks to your generous spirit that you are continuing to volunteer for our town as a firefighter. And I want to thank you for that. You're a great role model.
Well, thank you.
And I just want to echo that as well. You have a great, practical, sound mind. You have great reasons that you provide for why you believe what you believe, and I value your insight, and I will continue to use you for a lot of the decisions that we make, because I value your opinion. So thank you so much for all your service.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take the Mr. Patterson position and go last here. So I have written a number of prepared statements to wish a fellow council person all the best as they are at their last council meeting, and to say thank you to them for their years of service. All those before tonight were actually fairly easy to write. This one, not so much. I think it's because, part of the reason anyway is that I don't know what it will be like to serve on this council without you here, Lou. And, for the last 7 years, we've been quite the team, and I'm very proud to have served with you for so long out of your 9-year career on the council. And I know you're certainly not one to brag about what you've done, but I'll brag about you anytime. And we all know that you're the one we can count on to show up, give ideas, and respect others, even when in disagreement. And so I'll give you a couple stories. When Lou and I ran together back in 2011, I had recently joined the council by appointment, and we quickly found out that we didn't agree on all the issues. But Lou showed me as much respect at the age of 22 as he would any other council person, and I think a number of other people would not have treated me as an equal partner when we ran together, but Lou certainly did. And I appreciated the team that we made as running mates. We shared many laughs on the campaign trail in between houses, and it made the task of walking each weekend that much more fun. And he also entertained my nearly daily phone calls, so I appreciate that. When Garwood needed someone to act like a project manager at the Recreation Complex construction project, it was Lou that spent countless hours on the phone or at meetings with the contractor and professionals, and it was Lou that spent more time at that site than any other person. Although it's certainly been a headache for some time, that project. I know it would be a far worse headache if Lou had not taken such an active role in that construction project. Lou has always been an important member of our community as a business owner who has supported many local organizations and town events, and as well as his service as a citizen. He has coached baseball, basketball, and soccer. Baseball, basketball, and football. I don't think that any soccer. He even earned the Yeah, I did think so. He even earned the title of favorite coach by my brother, and that was without any prompting from me. He also served as a member of the planning board before he joined the council. Lou is also a current member of the Knights of Columbus and serves on the Lions Club with me, so I can attest to his great batter-making skills. And I am sorry if I'm forgetting any, but I know your record of service is very long, and I want to thank you for your continued volunteerism, as the mayor pointed out, with your new membership to the Garwood Fire Department. I wish you well in your new endeavor as a firefighter. You have always said, for all the years I've known you, that you'd like to volunteer with them once you were done on council, and thank you for keeping that promise like you have every other one. Being a council person in many ways is a thankless job, and one that you even get personally attacked for. But tonight I want to say thank you to Lou for all the time and energy you've given to your role as a council person. And I also want to say thank you to your wife Jackie and your children, Tori, Lewis, and Anthony, for sharing you with Garwood. And so I'm very happy to have you as a true friend. And I know our lives get busy and hectic, but don't ever hesitate to pick up the phone and give me a call. Thanks, Lou.
No, thank you, Sarah. I didn't really have an idea or a thought to really sit up here and, talk about, me. But I mean, thank you for all the kind words. Luca, thanks for the beer. It's something that has been an experience, and I really like to thank the people of Garwood for having trusting me for three terms to be up here and really work for them. I have an inner burning to always help out people. It's something that, I don't know, I just learned as a kid, through my parents, and the reason why I moved on to the fire department is because I saw that they needed people. Over the past few years, it's been kind of rough over there, with members passing away, and I saw that they were getting older. Not that they want a 50-year-old, but but I had the firefighter 1 certificate, and I found a place for me to go, and I could still help Garwood. I will be forever grateful for everyone who helped me during these 3 campaigns. Sarah, yes, I welcomed you with open arms. I ran with John Lincoln, who's Jen's brother. We had a good time as far as campaigning. But everyone's knowledge up here is something that I will always take with me. I mean, whether I agree with people or didn't agree with people, we always found a way, to get through it and at least keep Garwood's best interest at heart. That's just who I am. I mean, I'm someone who is going to listen to people, and I'm always going to give back because I just have that in me where I think that people do need help. And, other things, you talk about, the compassion for seniors. I mean, I had a couple seniors call me and they kept on telling me how their light fixtures don't work, and I get there and it's just a bad light bulb, and they want to, break out their wallet. I'm like, look, just, call me when stuff happens. I don't want to see someone getting taken advantage of. So, but I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for everybody. I mean, it's been a great learning curve with everybody in the office. Bob, I mean, you taught me a whole bunch of stuff, and I feel most comfortable, when you're speaking. So, again, thank you, and it's been a great 9 years, but I'm not going anywhere, and Sluka, no, I'm not moving, so I plan on being here for as long as I'm alive. It's only been 24 years, but it's been a great past, I don't know, at least 22 of those, once you start to get to know people in town. So, thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Yeah, I'll read it. It says, presented to Councilman Petrozelli, Louis Petrozelli, in appreciation for your dedication and service to the Borough of Garwood, January 4th, 2009 through December 31st, 2017. Wow. I mean, when you look at the years, yeah, wow, it's a lot, but I don't know.
How do you think I feel?
I can't top that one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Move on to adjournment. The reorganization meeting of the mayor and council will be held on Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018, in the council chambers at 7 p.m. The regular meeting of the mayor and council will be held Tuesday, January 9th, 2018, in council chambers at 7:15 p.m. Workshop session to start at 7 p.m. Once again, on behalf of myself and the entire council, we wish you all a very safe and happy New Year. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion, Mayor.
All in favor?
Aye.